Now I'm ready to test the code, and before I do that, I like to save the file. Then if anything goes wrong, I can at least get back to the file the way it was. Before I test the user form, I'm going to use the debug command to see if there are any problems with the code. So on the menu bar, I'll click Debug, Compile VBA Project, and this is fine. If you get any errors highlighted, check for misspellings and correct those, and then run debug again, and everything should be okay. Now we're ready to run the user form and see how it works. So I'll go to the Run menu and click Run Sub User Form. I could also use the F5 keyboard shortcut, or I could click this little triangle button, which will run the form. I'll click it here. It opens up the form, and I'm going to select a part type. I'm going to just move this down a bit, and you'll see what's happening on the worksheet. So I'm going to select Fastener. Now it doesn't change the worksheet right away. It will change after that update. So it'll change when I go to the next control on the user form. So I'm going to click this arrow for part now. And you'll see on the worksheet, it put fastener in here. Then it created a list of the fastener parts, and it resized the table. Now looking at this list, there's a little problem because I have a scroll bar here. I have to scroll across to see what part that is. I'm going to select this one, and we'll fix that when we go back into the Visual Basic Editor. So I'll click here. Then for location, everything looks fine. I'll pick Store 1. It put in a current date. You could type a date there if you prefer. So if you want to put in a different date, you can change that. And for the quantity, it puts a default of 1, and you can change that. So I'll put in 20 here. Now to put that on the database worksheet, I'll click Add this part. That clears out the combos, puts in the current date and the default quantity again, and it's selected the part type. Now I could continue and add more parts, but I'm going to click Close because my testing is finished. Now we're back in the Visual Basic Editor, and I'm going to adjust this part combo box so that the column widths are a better size. I'll start by making this a little bit wider. I could make the form a little wider too, and then select the part combo again. And in its properties, I'm going to look for column widths. So here we can see it, and I'm going to change them a bit. So I'm going to put in 35, semicolon, 51. Then I'll press Enter, and we'll see if that looks any better. So I have this selected. I'll click the little drop-down arrow. There's still a scroll bar, so it doesn't quite fit. So I'll make this a little wider. Click again, and now everything fits. The scroll bar is gone. If you noticed any other problems, you could fix them. I'm going to go and check the database sheet and just make sure everything went where it was supposed to go. So back in the workbook, I'll go to Parts Data, and everything went in correctly. Part ID, category, part, location, date, and quantity. So everything is working well. I'll go back to Visual Basic. And the last thing I'm going to do here is just change the color of this user form. So I'll click on the user form to select it. And then here for back color, I'll double click. And you can choose from the palette or the system. I'll click on palette. You can right click on one of these empty boxes. That opens up the define color. You can click anywhere here and you'll see the range of colors. You can click on something here and then you'll see that color. You can add it to the palette, and then the background of the form changes. The labels will also have started out with the same color that the user form was. So you can select those just by dragging over them. And instead of changing their color, you can make their back style, instead of opaque, make them transparent. So click here to get the drop-down arrow and select 0, back style transparent. They'll just blend in with whatever background color you have on the user form. And then I will click Save again, and you could run another test. You can click the Run button. Just make sure everything looks okay and works okay here, and then close, and you're back in the Visual Basic Editor. Save the workbook, and you'll be ready for the next step.